what was the name of that department store in Poole that she claimed was closing down as a consequence of Rachel Reeves's policies? Beals.
Beals.
Well, it's not part of the 23-branch empire of department stores that went into administration in January of 2020 when, of course, the Conservatives were in power.
I literally was racking my brains thinking, Beals.
There's one in Diss
in
Norfolk. I know that there's one in Diss and there was one in Diss and there was one in Hexham as well. And then sort of various other Wisbech. So quite a few across East Anglia. It's quite like a household name, like Owen and Owen was in the Midlands for a long time.
We haven't heard anything about Beals in a while. And why is that?
Because it went into administration in 2020. And then the fella that runs it, who opened one shop in Poole as after the administration was completed. I was just looking at the recent Facebook page because I'm a weirdo. Went into the Poole store last weekend. No wonder it's closing down. Most of the stuff in there was just outdated. I remember visiting the Bournemouth store during the closing down sale and wondered if it was the buyers who were to blame. Another one saying they were a dead duck for years, sadly didn't move with the times. Perhaps if your business cannot survive without paying staff a fair salary, it's no longer viable. Outdated department style farmer. How long did the Bournemouth one close down? It's been circling the drain for years. I guess management is looking to shift the blame. This in response to a Daily Telegraph story from 5 days ago, claiming that a department store was holding a Rachel Reeves closing down sale, but not mentioning, A, that the CEO, whose name is Tony Brown, is a fully paid up member of the Conservative Party, B, that Beals reported a £6 million loss in 2013, closed 10 stores in 2016 and went into complete administration in 2020, or indeed C, that the company that has now reopened 3 stores shortly afterwards, 2 of them shut, and only the one in Poole survived. So how is this all Rachel Reeves' fault?
It's all Rachel Reeves' fault. Well, it's because it's in the Telegraph, so I imagine
that's
be why.
Googled it? They could have just Googled. You know what I Googled?
Yeah.
Because Timothy texted me to tell me that he lives in the area. Beals went into administration in 2020, so I thought he can't have got that right. Kemi Badenoch told us she never makes gaffes.
She never makes a gaffe.
She never has to apologise because she never says anything wrong. So I literally just Googled Beals administration and found all of the things that
it didn't even last the pandemic. Didn't even go into the pandemic. But yes, that's a pretty big one, isn't it? And just really raises the question: who are these people in Tory head office? Have they fired everybody, including their research department? They really need to be getting this stuff right. It's pretty basic stuff, and it's obviously a very hot topic. It's a good topic to go on. There are lots of reasons why I think people feel that the economy isn't doing as well as it could do, and it's a good topic to go on. But if she can't get basic facts right about this, then that really puts her in a really poor position. So it's not fantastic to, the whole closing down sale works very well as a joke, but if it's not backed up by any sort of action, then what's the point?
Another example of her being terminally online? As I'm not on Twitter anymore.
No, it's terminally in the Telegraph. It's just she needs to be reading more than just the Telegraph, doesn't she?
I guess, really but it would probably have been picked up on Twitter and salivated over by...
I don't think I've ever been to Beals. So sorry to say. That's just a sign of the times. I mean, it's not Woolworths. No Woolworths, is it? But,
Pretty clear she hasn't either.
Sure. But yeah, that's pretty bad. I think a pretty flat performance from her today, would you not say? Well, I didn't really fail to land a lot of blows there. Lots of facts. She kept throwing off facts and, this and that, unemployment rates, wage growth, all of this stuff that we talked about at the beginning, but didn't really feel that the emotion really landed there. And I think that's what she was hoping that the Beals anecdote was going to do, but it didn't. So I don't think that was a fantastic.
Everyone's now being bombarded with tales of Beals closing down up and down. 22 of them shut down in 2020, so people have got an awful lot.
We've got good
of
memories,
evidence.
Guys.
I think Debenhams went bust under the Tories as well. But hey ho,
let's not let facts get in the way of a good slamming of the government.
Shall we listen to Liz Saville-Roberts briefly, the leader of Plaid Cymru in Westminster, putting a question to the Prime Minister?
This Prime Minister once spoke of compassion and dignity for migrants and for defending free movement. Now he talks of islands of strangers and taking back control. Somebody here has to call this out, Mr. Speaker. It seems the only principle he consistently defends is whichever he last heard in a focus group. So I ask him, is there any belief he holds which survives a week in Downing Street?
Yes, the belief that she talks rubbish. Mr. Speaker, I want to lead a country where we pull together and walk into the future as neighbours and as communities, not as strangers. And the loss of control of migration by the last government put all of that at risk. And that's why we're fixing the system based on principles of control, selection and fairness.
Lightning quick response from Keir Starmer there.
Rude.
Yeah, but sure. It was also rude when he accused the Tories of sliding into brain-dead oblivion.
Yes,
But,
it's
Starmer's getting a bit
punchy.
spikier at PMQs.
I thought that was worth playing out because we heard his attempt at an attempt. We heard his sort of defence of the rhetoric that he was deploying earlier in the week, which has caused such upset, of course, on his own benches. Farage has also been on his feet, trying to shift attention back to the small boats crossings. But what was interesting was that the rhetoric that Keir Starmer unveiled on Monday with regard to immigration, if not the policies, was something Kemi Badenoch felt she couldn't go near.
Yeah, and why does she feel that does she not want to open up that discussion on it? Because again, she like Keir Starmer, is getting completely squeezed, and there are people within the Conservative Party that feel like you were talking about before we went to Prime Minister's questions about the Liberal Democrats and the seats in the south of England that the Liberal Democrats have been snapping at the heels of the Tory Party and the Labour Party on now for a long time. Kemi Badenoch's in exactly the same position because she's being squeezed by two parts of the political spectrum. On one hand, Nigel Farage and reform, which of course doing very well in the polls. You cannot ignore it. You also can't ignore, the polling which says that lots of Brits, lots of voters do want governments and political parties to do more on immigration. You can't ignore it. But actually, Keir Starmer, and we might hear some more from Keir Starmer next week because actually we've got this big EU summit, Ursula von der Leyen and other political leaders from around Europe flying into London for a big political summit on Monday. And I wonder whether the language around migration might start to change. You'd like to think that if you were Keir Starmer about to announce potential under 30s mobility deal, you might start to be talking up the benefits of migration as well. But also that makes me think...
Can he pivot at all? I think he probably can. We're still a long way out from an election.
I think that's why he decided to make this speech this week, because he might be preparing to announce some sort of deal next week, and therefore he'll be saying, well, I will crack down on some forms of migration in order to allow under 30s to have this sort of mobility migration deal, so he can have both his cake and eat it too, essentially. I think that's why he's done it and framed it in this way. But yeah, it's he's clearly trying to defend it, trying to get on both sides of it. But the loss of control of migration by the last government is something that Kemi Badenoch just can't come back to, can she?
No, and nor can she really get much traction on trade deals because, she didn't sign any.
I'm sorry, but actually that's mad, isn't it? I know your feelings very strongly on these trade deals.
Yes.
And, she's now completely flipping on that and saying, it's a tiny, tiny tariff trade deal. Why are you bothering? Well, why did you bother signing all of these memorandums
She
of
announced
understanding
things
with
that didn't
everybody?
actually change anything.
Yeah,
and Starmer has improved the situation we were in before he signed it,
Exactly.
albeit that because Donald Trump is Donald Trump, it leaves him in a situation worse than the one he was in under Joe Biden.
And I will always defend the idea of these memorandum of understanding
Will
trade
you?
as whatever. Yeah, because I think it's better than nothing.
Is it though?
Yeah.
I think I'll fight you on that one.
So you think that this trade deal that the Keir Starmer has
it's got numbers
signed
in it.
has got something.
Well,
I just think it's
got numbers in it. A tariff was X and now it's X
Yes.
minus Y.
Exactly.
Whereas,
So it's worth doing. It's better
that
than
is.
nothing.
But the Badenoch stuff was just we promised to be nice to each other in the future.
Yeah, true.
Yes,
but I still think it's worth
wasn't much of a
having
fight.
this. No, I think so. It might not be shifting the economy by 2, 3, 4%
Sure.
or whatever. But I do think that it's better to have these memorandums of understanding, these mini trail deals are better than absolutely nothing at all. And having these relationships is a good thing. But I agree that the Conservatives have talked them up to be far more than they actually are. And this Labour government, of course, is talking this trade deal up to be far more than it is. It's a carve out of some specific trade tariffs. It's not going to have a huge impact on our economy. And we are still looking at tariffs hitting the economy to the tune of potentially tens of millions of pounds.
And India is, by any measure, a win for the United
definitely.
Kingdom.
And again, something that the Tories tried to get over the line for years and couldn't
they
do.
could have shared the credit. She could have said, "I'm delighted to see him picking up the pieces of what we
That
had
would have
worked
been
so
good.
hard." That would have been a much
That would have been a good
wiser
one.
way to do it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Instead, he's done a lap of honour and she's on the side of the track throwing rotten tomatoes.
Exactly, and I think it worked. That's something that will work for both parties because he can say, well, actually, yes, we picked up your trade deal and we did what you couldn't do. So it does work for both parties, and you can have that fight about who it was that got that trade deal over the line. But but I think it's worth having one.
And then Brexit. I know we don't bring it up very often on this programme, but Brexit was all about being able to sign trade deals with people like India. Keir Starmer didn't want to do blooming Brexit. Kemi Badenoch did, and now they've done a trade deal with India, and she's poo-pooing it, and he's celebrating it.
The tables have turned.
Everything's gone bonkers,
It has.
hasn't it?
It's gone
And
crazy.
speaking of bonkers, some people listening on catch-up without realising it, like Pete, who's been in touch to tell me, Kemi Badenoch has forgotten that Beales went into administration in January 2020 and closed 22 of its 23 stores that March. It later reopened under new owners with 3 stores, 2 of them quickly shut, and now the final one is shutting in Poole at the end of this month. But the Conservative Party member who runs the company has told the Daily Telegraph it was all Rachel Reeves' fault, and without doing any research whatsoever, or indeed running it by her top team and closest aides, Kemi Badenoch has just repeated that nonsense on the floor of the House of Commons.
Not great.
Ed Davey was good.
Ed Davey was good, yeah, and again, without blowing our own trumpets, exactly the topics that we thought he was going to go on Gaza and care workers as well, which
it's
we
not my
neglected to
trumpet,
mention.
Natasha. It was entirely yours.
Entirely my trumpet. And also, just to bring you what Nigel Farage has been talking about in the last few minutes, he says, we at Reform enjoyed your speech and urge him to go even further than he did on Monday, which, again, feeds into this idea of the Prime Minister being squeezed on both sides.
It's not. It's been etiolated on both sides or stretched, because the left are saying you've gone too far, and the right are saying you haven't gone far enough. So, am I going completely doolally, or does that create quite a big space?
Maybe
in the middle.
Well,
I'm not as extreme as you, and I'm not as extreme as you. So he is the ultimate centrist.
Yeah, so he should be defending this position and saying, actually, I'm going to what the British people want to hear, which is more controls on migration, but I will not be going as far as those guys.
And that's why the use of the word squalid, which a lot of my favourite commentators have picked up on, even more than the use of the word strangers, which is more nuanced. And although Enoch Powell used the words, he wasn't using them in the same context that Keir Starmer was. It's the use of the word squalid that has upset people so much.